Howdy everyone. So I now have the nut plates installed and I have the shims and spacers installed. It's a little bit difficult to see because I've got this wax paper on, which I'll explain here in a minute. But I've already showed you some up close shots of how these spacers had fit inside of this wingtip. So now this is all done. So again, with the spacers in here, I can go ahead and rivet my nut plates through this entire stack up. But obviously with the spacers in between the rib and the outer skin, nothing gets compressed. So the spacers, again, just make sure that this outer skin is pushed out so that it will lay nice with the rest of the wing. So I have my metal strip here. Again, not required, it's just personal preference, and everything is fuel tank sealed. So I put a layer of fuel tank sealant underneath this strip and then went ahead and riveted my nut plates. So that's all done. The strips are in, the spacers are in, the nut plates are in, that's all set. So what I'd like to do next, and I had done this on the other wingtip, I am going to go ahead and put a layer of fuel tank sealant around the flange of the wing up underneath here and along this entire edge. But I don't want that to stick to the wingtip itself, right? Because I want to be able to get the wingtip off. So I'm in effect making a fuel tank sealant type of gasket. So to keep the sealant from when the sealant gets squeezed out, to keep it from adhering itself to the skin, I put some painter's tape down all the way around this entire perimeter, underneath here as well. This will get the fuel tank sealant put on it, and then I'll install the wingtip and run some screws through it very lightly. So to prevent the fuel tank sealant from sticking to the wingtip itself, I went ahead and stuck on some wax paper. So it's just strips of wax paper that I've taped down on the inside, and then I wrap it around to the outside and taped it on the outside as well. So this is taped underneath, and then it's wrapped around and it's taped on top. So the fuel tank sealant will end up sitting on top of the wax paper. And again, I'll run the screws through, but I'm not going to tighten them down all the way. And that will form a little bit of a gasket. It will also take up any kind of irregularities that are between the wingtip and the skin of the wing itself, fill any gaps, fill any voids, that kind of thing. Not required, just personal preference. So I have this prepped. I've got the wing itself prepped. I'm going to mix up a batch of fuel tank sealant. I'm going to spread that in here like I just said, bring the wingtip over and put the screws in, but I'm not going to tighten them down all the way. I'm going to leave them a little bit loose because I don't want that fuel tank sealant to squeeze out completely. And then I'll leave it sit for like a week and let that set up. And then I can come back and pull all my protective tape off, pull all my wax paper off of the tip, and that should give me a nice seal, and again fill in any irregularities and gaps. So let me get cranking on some fuel tank sealant, and I'll talk to you guys later. Howdy everyone. So this wingtip has been sitting on the wing here for I'm guessing about 5 or 6 days now with the fuel tank sealant in place. So again, real quick, I think I had showed this before, but maybe not. It's not required, but I've decided to make, if you will, a fuel tank sealant gasket where the wingtip attaches to the wing itself. So the way that I do that is I don't want the fuel tank sealant to stick to the wingtip. I want it to stay with the wing. So I tape off the wing where I don't want fuel tank sealant to stick. And then I tape off the wing tip with wax paper. You can see the wax paper here. The wax paper is just wrapped around the flange. So it's wrapped around the wingtip flange, it's taped inside, and then it's wrapped around this outside area here, and then the blue tape just holds it in place. And then I goop up the inside of the wingtip flange with fuel tank sealant, stick the wingtip on, and then draw down, well, it depends on your point of view. I either draw down the skin to the fiberglass, or I draw up the fiberglass into the aluminum with the screws. But I don't over tighten them. I just want to bring these two surfaces together. I don't want to squish out the fuel tank sealant. This still feels a little tacky. This is the area on the bottom of the wing here. There was a gap in here that I didn't care for, and it was the same on the other wingtip. So the fuel tank sealant, of course, will help fill in that gap and help seal it. And other than that, that's pretty much all I've done. I just got this put together, and I've been letting it sit for, like I said, it's been about 5 or 6 days now. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pull these screws out, and I'm going to remove the wingtip. I'm going to pull off the tape, and then I'll come back and clean off any fuel tank sealant that happens to be where it shouldn't. And then after that, I'll start on working on this cover. But I'll get this removed, and I'll get the tape and everything, the wax paper and all that pulled off of it, and I'll show you what it looks like. I'll give you a warning in advance. The fuel tank sealant on the inside is not pretty. You've only got like a 1/2 inch flange to work with, and the holes are dimpled, and it makes a mess, like you guys know. So that won't be much to look at, but at least it's inside, right? So let me get this stuff disassembled, and I'll talk to you guys here in a minute. Howdy, everyone. I started to pull everything off of this wingtip, and then I realized that I hadn't talked about some of this stuff in detail like I promised I would. So let me do that real quick before I get this thing all cleaned up. So this is the wax paper. Like I said, I didn't want the fuel tank sealant sticking to the wingtip itself. So the wax paper is just wrapped around this edge, and it's taped underneath like you see here, and it was taped on top. Let me see if I can. So that's how it was. You can see it's taped on the outside, and then it used to wrap around, and it was also taped on the inside like you see here. So now all I'm doing is just pulling all this off, and you can see that it leaves the edge pretty clean. Sometimes, like here, it looks like fuel tank sealant has worked its way through the hole, but I can clean that up with a little bit of acetone. But for the most part, it just keeps all the fuel tank sealant from sticking to the wingtip. So I'll pull this all off, and I'll clean this up with some acetone. And then it's the same thing on the wing itself. You can see the fuel tank sealant is now stuck to the wing tip, or to the wing itself, the wing skin. And up on top where I had it all taped, it looks pretty clean. Again, I'll come through here and clean this off with acetone. There's a little bit of fuel tank sealant right there. This will get all cleaned off with acetone. I'm going to hit all of these countersinks. These are actually dimpled. I'm going to hit these with my countersink and clean off everything that's inside of here. Some fuel tank sealant inside of these, and a little bit of tape that was left over when I pulled it off. Again, not required, but it does provide a little bit of a gasket, if you will, to keep water from getting in there potentially. And it also, if there's any kind of unevenness or any kind of irregularities, it will kind of take care of that a little bit as well. Not required. It's probably overkill, but here we are. So I think I will pull this stuff off and clean it. I'll clean the wing itself. I'm not sure what I'll do next. There's an access panel under here that's just held on with tape. I have to drill that, put nut plates on and all that stuff, countersink it to actually attach it with hardware. Now that I've got the wingtip pretty much finished as far as having it mated to the wing, this is all finished now. So I can go ahead and start wrapping this as well. So, not sure what I'll work on next, but when I get there, I'll get it on video. Talk to you guys later.